There's an uncomfortable truth about building decentralized systems in 2025. The playbook that worked for Bitcoin and Ethereum won't work anymore. Not because those systems failed, they succeeded spectacularly. But their success revealed something important. When decentralized networks carry trillions in value, coordination surfaces emerge that become natural targets for capture. Mining pools concentrate. Foundations gain influence. Upgrade processes create focal points. Regulatory attention finds identifiable entities to engage. These aren't failures, they're natural consequences of operating at global scale. The question for anyone building after Bitcoin and Ethereum is, knowing what we know now about how coordination reconcentrates, can we design differently? And if you design differently, you inherit a brutal constraint. True decentralization requires suffering. Not metaphorical suffering, actual years in obscurity, price collapse, watching VCs and speculators dismiss you, enduring the frustration of people who claim they want cypherpunk ideals while ignoring projects that embody them. You must be willing to look dead for years while the architecture hardens beneath the silence. This essay explores what that different path looks like, not as theory, but as observable strategy through the case study of Xenon Network, a system that launched in 2019 and has been running this experiment in real time. It's a blueprint for building in the shadows of giants. The coordination gravity problem. Bitcoin and Ethereum are consensus-secure, globally operational systems that maintain decentralized infrastructure at massive scale. Their success is undeniable. What their success also revealed is how coordination naturally converges around certain surfaces as systems carry significant economic value. In Bitcoin, hash rate clustering means the top two mining pools frequently combine for over 40% of blocks. These pools aren't the same as individual miners. People can switch pools, but pools represent coordination hubs. If incentives align wrong, they become potential choke points. In Ethereum, the protocol remains decentralized, but requires ongoing social coordination for upgrades. Roadmaps become necessary focal points. The Ethereum Foundation's grants and signaling shape development paths. This isn't corruption. It's the coordination load required to ship ambitious upgrades while maintaining security. Call it coordination gravity, the tendency for scale, capital, and human behavior to create attractors, hubs of narrative, funding, or infrastructure that become de facto control points even in open systems. Regulators target them. Large capital prefers them. Users gravitate toward them for convenience. The mechanisms are predictable. Clear narratives enable adoption, but create canonical meanings that can be governed. Bitcoin became digital gold. Ethereum became world computer. Simple phrases that made complex systems legible also mapped coordinates for influence. Infrastructure concentrates through economies of scale. Exchanges, RPC providers, bridge operators, custodians. These naturally centralize because centralization is efficient. Foundations and treasuries, even when well-intentioned, become coordination points. Whoever allocates capital shapes priorities. Priorities become roadmaps. Roadmaps create legitimacy. Legitimacy becomes authority. None of this means Bitcoin or Ethereum failed. They optimized for different constraints. Bitcoin optimized for monetary policy and mutability. Ethereum optimized for programmability and rapid innovation. Both succeeded in what they set out to do. But their success created new conditions. Global capital now actively seeks influence in crypto infrastructure. Regulatory frameworks target identifiable coordination points. The question is whether different architectural choices, encoded as constraints from Genesis, can resist these pressures. The alternative path, bootstrap, without center. If you understand coordination gravity, you inherit a constraint. The more clearly you explain a system early, the easier it is to capture before it hardens. So, what do you do if your primary goal isn't adoption, but the irreversibility? What if you're building for a decades-long timeline and want to ensure the system can survive even hostile capture attempts. The path looks different from the beginning, anchoring trust to Bitcoin. Most blockchain projects bootstrap through foundations, token sales, or discretionary allocations. This creates immediate centralization. Someone controls undistributed supply. Someone makes promises about the future. Someone becomes the trusted issuer. There's an alternative. Anchor the bootstrap to an external system people already trust. Xenon used Bitcoin. Participants locked Bitcoin through X stakes, time-locked contracts using Bitcoin's native opcodes. Lock periods range from 3 to 12 months. When the time lock expired, Bitcoin returned automatically. No discretion, no keys held by a team, no promises required. Xenon tokens minted proportionally to stake duration. The distribution was a function of time and participation, not belief in some future roadmap or trust in a founding team. Why this matters: trust was bounded. Participants weren't trusting Xenon indefinitely. They were trusting Bitcoin's rules for a fixed interval. If the experiment failed, they recovered their Bitcoin. The mechanism itself provided the legitimacy, not a narrative about what Xenon would become. This shaped everything that followed. It selected for participants willing to engage with protocol rules rather than promises. It avoided early concentration of power, and it meant Xenon launched without a social layer capable of enforcing meaning. No foundation to defer to, no issuer to appeal to, no authority to arbitrate intent. The network began with trust in Bitcoin, not trust in Xenon. Just a willingness to see what emerged when that trust period expired. Architecture that constrains coordination. Bootstrap explains how Xenon started without a center. Architecture explains how it avoids creating new centers through operation. Many blockchains require continuous coordination just to stay alive. Upgrades are existential events. Failure to coordinate risks chain splits, stalled progress, or network halts. This creates natural attractors where power concentrates. Core developer calls, formal improvement proposals, foundation signaling about the right path forward. Xenon took a different approach. Make coordination episodic rather than continuous. The system has run for almost 5 years now. A dual ledger architecture with a DAG for transactions and a blockchain for consensus, with zero downtime. Nodes coordinated to deploy upgrades. A bridge was built, orchestrators were deployed. Social alignment formed when needed. But here's what's unusual. Coordination happened in the margins, not at the center. It was episodic and bounded, not continuous and existential. Nodes that lagged didn't halt the network. Extensions added capability without redefining consensus. The design principle: coordination should be required to extend the system, not to keep it alive. Consensus safety should not depend on continuous social alignment. Optional complexity should not become mandatory infrastructure. This is not eliminating coordination impossible for any system humans operate. It's constraining where coordination can become a point of capture. Funding without creating kingmakers. Here's where most systems fail the decentralization test. They avoid creating a foundation, but then either work stops for lack of funding, or they create a DAO treasury that becomes exactly the kind of coordination focal point they were trying to avoid. The pattern is predictable. Treasury DAOs start as a way to fund development, but whoever allocates capital inevitably shapes reality. Capital becomes priorities. Priorities become roadmaps. Roadmaps become legitimacy. Legitimacy becomes authority. Even when the process is democratic, large token holders or active governance participants gain disproportionate influence. The treasury becomes a throne, even if no one officially sits on it. Xenon's Accelerator Z-AZ mechanism attempts to break this pattern. It's worth examining in detail because it represents a different theory of how funding can work without creating permanent power structures. How AZ works. AZ is a funding mechanism, but it explicitly does not grant authority to define what Xenon should become. There is no permanent committee, no agenda-setting mandate, no narrative obligation attached to receiving funds. Anyone can submit a proposal for specific work. The community votes using their stake tokens, skin in the game, not just opinions. If a proposal passes, funds are locked and released based on milestone completion. The work either gets done or it doesn't. Here's what's different. Funding decisions are episodic, not continuous. Each proposal is justified on its own merits, not by affiliation or alignment with some master plan. Contributors aren't anointed. They're funded temporarily to attempt something specific. Failure doesn't delegitimize the system. Success doesn't confer governance power. The funding mechanism exists, but it can't tell the network what Xenon is. It can only make it possible for someone to try building something. The trade-offs are real. This makes AZ inefficient by conventional standards. It's slower than a foundation with a clear roadmap. It's less coherent than a DAO with permanent committees. It's more frustrating for contributors who want clear direction from above. But it prevents funding from becoming a permanent capture point. No one can point to AZ and say that's where the real power is, because the real power remains distributed across the validator set and the community of participants who vote on each individual proposal. Compare this to traditional models. In foundation-led projects, the foundation defines official priorities. Grants signal what matters. Contributors align with foundation vision to increase their chances of funding. The foundation becomes the interpretive authority, whether they want to be or not. In Treasury DAOs with permanent committees, those committees accumulate power through repeated decision-making. They become the adults in the room. New proposals get filtered through what the committee thinks makes sense. The committee didn't seize power. Power accumulated around them naturally. AZ avoids both patterns by making every funding decision standalone and revocable. This trades efficiency for neutrality. Whether that trade-off is worth it depends on whether meaningful work eventually emerges, which remains an open question. Pattern recognition. Look at the pattern across Bootstrap, architecture, and funding. Bitcoin bootstrapped through X stakes trust without belief. Legitimacy came from Bitcoin's enforcement of time lock rules, not promises about Xenon's future. Architecture that separates liveness from coordination. Upgrades extend but don't sustain. The system keeps running even when coordination is imperfect. AZ funding without authority, capital allocation happens, but it doesn't create kingmakers or official direction. Each layer trades their conventional notion of efficiency for irreversibility. The question is whether anything meaningful gets built with these constraints, or whether the constraints just make it too hard. The defense mechanisms, ambiguity, and suffering. Now we get to the uncomfortable part, the part that sounds like cope or rationalization, until you understand the strategic logic. If your primary goal is irreversibility rather than rapid adoption, you face a timing problem. Clear narratives drive growth, but they also create capture surfaces. The sooner you explain what your system is for, the sooner various interests know how to position themselves to influence it. So, what do? You delay legibility. You accept years of looking confused, incomplete, maybe even abandoned. You let the price collapse. You watch people dismiss you as vaporware or a dead project, and you do this intentionally as a filter, as a time-buying mechanism, while the architecture hardens beneath the noise. Ambiguity as time buy. From the outside, Xenon has looked strange for most of its existence. No obvious killer app, no VM arms race, no aggressive ecosystem incentives, long periods of apparent inactivity, documentation that feels incomplete by modern standards, original architects who disappeared without explanation. The default interpretation is incompetence or abandonment, and maybe that's all it is, but there's another interpretation that only makes sense if you assume the designers were optimizing for long-term resistance to capture, not short-term growth. Ambiguity accomplishes several things simultaneously. It filters participants aggressively. People who need clear pitches, roadmaps, or price narratives leave early. What remains are those willing to reason from first principles, who engage with the architecture itself rather than stories about what it might become. It slows economic capture. Speculative capital hesitates without clear narratives. VCs can't pitch it to their LPs. Momentum traders move on to clearer opportunities. The system becomes economically invisible, which means economically uncapturable. It prevents premature ossification. An undefined system retains more degrees of freedom. Decisions about what the system is can be deferred while the technical primitives mature. It shifts power away from the social layer. When meaning is undefined, narrative authority has nowhere to concentrate. No one can claim to speak for the system because the system hasn't said what it is yet. This is not how you grow a network quickly. It's how you avoid building a soft target while waiting to see if the architecture matters. The price collapse as feature. Xenon's price has experienced multiple 90% plus drawdowns. For long stretches, it had almost no trading volume, no exchange listings that mattered, no visible market interest. For most projects, this is death. For a system optimizing for capture resistance, it's strategic. Rising prices create loud stakeholders with entitlement. They create pressure for visible progress, measured in announcements rather than architectural soundness. They incentivize shipping surface features over hardening invariance. Collapsing prices do something different. They burn off tourists. They weaken social leverage. They reduce the cost of being architecturally wrong in early iterations. They remove the false validation of market belief. Price collapse is compatible with the decentralization strategy if infrastructure continues regardless of price. Remaining participants align on architecture rather than speculation, and the system can be rediscovered later without sustained attention. 5 years in, Xenon's infrastructure has continued operating. Coordination remained possible, but whether critical mass can reform, whether filtering can reverse into attraction, remains unknown. Founder, disappearance as strategy. The original architects of Xenon are gone. No thought leadership circuit, no governance council, no interpretive authority. This feels irresponsible until you consider what staying would mean. If designers remain, they become the reference for correct understanding. Disputes route back to them. Decentralization stalls at the social layer, at the layer of meaning. Leaving forces the system to stand under what it does, not what someone says it should do. Bitcoin had to outgrow Satoshi. Ethereum arguably hasn't outgrown Vitalik, though whether that's beneficial or detrimental depends on your perspective and what Ethereum is optimizing for. Whether Xenon's founder disappearance was planned or circumstantial is unknowable. The effect is the same. The system must generate meaning from participant interaction rather than founder interpretation. This is either disaster or exactly the point. Which one depends on whether the architecture enables capabilities that eventually attract builders who weren't there from the beginning. The observable irony. Here's where the observable behavior gets interesting and where price reveals itself as a coordination mechanism even among those who claim to reject it. Scroll through crypto forums and you'll find people mourning the loss of the cypherpunk ethos. They share articles about the crypto rebels of the 1990s, quote, manifestos about building tools for human liberation, regardless of legal risk, and ask where all the Phil Zimmermans went, the people who released code like dandelion seeds blowing in the wind. We've traded a tool for human liberation for a high-stakes casino, they lament. Can a project even survive today without the venture capital mindset? The answer, empirically, is yes. Such projects exist right now. Fearless primitives running continuously for years. Bootstrapped without central treasuries. Grinding through multi-year obscurity with no marketing budget. And almost nobody in those Reddit threads would touch them. Because here's what infrastructure first actually looks like. The price chart looks dead for years. No slick white paper promising returns. No foundation to provide legitimacy signals. The Discord is engineers debating architectural trade-offs, not posting memes. Progress measured in GitHub commits, not Medium announcements. The same people romanticizing the cypherpunk vision scroll right past these projects. They want the aesthetic of rebellion, but when confronted with its actual form, slow, ambiguous, unvalidated by capital, they dismiss it as vaporware. Price as Schelling point, an observable pattern. Many participants publicly identify as infrastructure purists or protocol researchers. They may express genuine interest in novel architectures. They may engage substantively with technical documentation. They may acknowledge the coherence of specific design patterns. Yet these same participants decline to contribute or build, citing primarily price action, market capitalization, or lack of speculative momentum as disqualifying factors. This isn't hypocrisy in the moral sense. It's observable market behavior, revealing how deeply price has become a coordination signal, even among those who explicitly reject financialized governance. The pattern is measurable. Technical acknowledgement paired with market-based rejection. Participants analyze architecture favorably, agree mechanisms, solve coordination problems, then state they can't justify building on a system with insufficient market cap. Technical merit becomes subordinate to the validation signal provided by price. Legitimacy derived from capital formation, not operational properties. A system with multi-year operational history and demonstrable resistance to failure modes receives less legitimacy than a new project with venture backing and token marketing. The latter provides a legible coordination signal. The former does not. Attention follows price, not architecture. Documentation quality, operational track record, and client diversity attract minimal attention compared to price charts and exchange listings. This remains true even among participants who explicitly criticize this dynamic. Price has become a Schelling point, a coordination mechanism that concentrates attention and resources regardless of underlying architectural properties. Even participants who intellectually understand this, who can articulate its problems, behave as though price is the primary signal of legitimacy. The irony is that systems explicitly designed to resist capture through protocol-level constraints may become irrelevant, not because the constraints fail, but because they lack the coordination signals that attract participants in the first place. This creates a failure mode distinct from technical inadequacy. Systems can be architecturally sound but socially irrelevant because they lack the financialized coordination signals that participants have internalized as proxies for legitimacy. A system can be correct and still irrelevant, and irrelevance is not the same as decentralization. Falsification conditions. Any serious hypothesis needs conditions under which it can be proven wrong. It's easy to keep moving goalposts to explain away every warning sign as temporary or misunderstood. So here are the conditions under which this approach to building decentralized systems would be falsified. The dual ledgers repeatedly halt, and no one bothers to revive them. This would indicate the architecture wasn't actually resilient, just lucky for a while. The architectural primitives collapse under real usage. Feeless transactions create spam problems that can't be solved. The dual ledger coordination creates more problems than it solves. The claims about what the architecture enables prove hollow under stress. Ambiguity never resolves into emergent coordination. No external builders discover the system. No applications emerge that depend on these specific primitives. The filtering was too aggressive, leaving too few participants with too little diversity of skill. We're still having the exact same conversation in 2030. Technical discussions circle the same unsolved problems. No progress toward meaningful adoption. Waiting for the right problem becomes indistinguishable from nothing is coming. At that point, patience becomes indistinguishable from abandonment. The hypothesis was wrong. This wasn't sophisticated strategy. It was just a failure that took a long time to become obvious. None of these conditions have triggered yet. They could. The fact that infrastructure has survived 5 years of obscurity doesn't prove the approach works. It just means we don't know yet whether it will. What would success look like? Success for this approach doesn't look like traditional crypto success. It's not a hockey stick price chart, not viral adoption, not foundation announcements about enterprise partnerships. Success looks like external builders discovering the primitives matter. Someone trying to solve a real problem: feeless micropayments, trustless interoperability, censorship-resistant coordination, and realizing these specific architectural choices enable solutions that weren't possible elsewhere. Success looks like applications emerging that depend on the invariance this system maintained through years of obscurity. Things like systems that require feeless transaction execution without MEV or gas auctions. Applications where users need throughput guarantees based on resource commitment rather than ability to outbid others. Bridges or integrations that leverage the dual settlement model. Fast DAG confirmation for user experience. Blockchain finality for security. Trustless cross-chain protocols that inherit Bitcoin's security budget without requiring Bitcoin's validation. Coordination mechanisms that need censorship resistance without central sequences. Applications where no single party can control transaction ordering or extract MEV. Success looks like independent documentation, tooling, and infrastructure improvements from people who weren't part of the original launch. Block explorers, wallets, developer libraries built by teams who discovered the system on their own and found it useful. Success looks like other projects adopting these patterns, not copying Xenon specifically, but implementing similar approaches. Bitcoin-anchored bootstraps, episodic funding mechanisms, architectures that separate liveness from coordination. Most importantly, success looks like meaning emerging from usage rather than from authority. The system becomes useful to people who weren't looking for it, who discovered it because it solved a problem they couldn't solve elsewhere. This hasn't happened yet. Whether it can happen, whether ambiguity can resolve into legibility without creating new coordination centers, whether filtering can reverse into attraction, remains the open question. Xenon could still fail. What matters is whether the pattern survives as a viable approach for others to attempt. The bet on time over attention. Most crypto systems bet on attention. Launch with maximum visibility. Create narratives that spread. Build communities that rally. Generate momentum that attracts capital and developers. This approach bets on time instead. It accepts years of looking dead. It tolerates misunderstanding. It survives price collapse. It endures the irony of people claiming they want decentralized systems while ignoring the ones that actually embody those principles. The hypothesis is that attention is noisy, reflexive, and centralizing, while time is quiet, selective, and patient. That coordination gravity can be resisted by making systems that survive without continuous validation. That irreversibility is possible if you're willing to pay its price. And the price is steep. You trade growth for neutrality. You trade clear direction for architectural freedom. You trade market validation for resistance to capture. You accept that most people, even those who claim to value decentralization, will scroll past without looking. The original cypherpunks understood something important. They didn't care whether you liked their software. They knew it couldn't be destroyed. They knew that widely dispersed systems couldn't be shut down, that code released like dandelion seeds would find the soil it needed eventually. They also knew something else. Most people would never use these tools until they had no other choice. Xenon, or any system following this blueprint, isn't building for the people who spend their time lamenting the death of cypherpunk ideals while scrolling past every infrastructure-first project. It's building for the decade after those people finally admit they were just chasing narratives all along. It's building for the engineers still thinking about whether separating settlement and execution actually reduces complexity, for the people who care more about getting the architecture right than getting the story right. For the builders who understand that sometimes the most important work looks like nothing is happening at all. If this approach fails, it will fail quietly and clearly. The falsification conditions will trigger. We'll know it was just patience mistaken for strategy, ambiguity that was really just confusion, constraints that prevented rather than enabled. If it succeeds, success will arrive late, indirect, unceremonious, when someone builds something that wasn't possible elsewhere, when decisions that looked like stagnation prove to have been load-bearing, when the system that everyone dismissed as abandoned becomes useful to people who weren't even looking for it. That's the real fork in the road, not whether the system survives, but whether survival ever becomes useful to someone who wasn't already convinced. The answer to that question isn't clear yet. It won't be clear for years, and that ambiguity, that uncertainty, that willingness to not know, that might be the most cypherpunk thing about it. A final note on suffering. It's worth being explicit about what this path demands. True decentralization requires suffering, not metaphorical discomfort, but actual years of watching your work be dismissed, your architecture be misunderstood, your token price collapse while people call you a failure. Years of building without validation, without the dopamine hit of upward price charts, without the social proof of foundation endorsement or VC backing. It requires the discipline to stay quiet when people demand explanations. To watch opportunities pass because seizing them would compromise the architecture. To accept that most people, even those who claim to want what you're building, will never understand until it's too late for them to influence it. This is why most attempts at truly decentralized systems fail. Not because the technology is impossible, but because the human cost is too high. The waiting is too long. The misunderstanding is too complete. The temptation to just explain clearly, to capture some momentum, to give people the narrative they're asking for. That temptation breaks most builders before the architecture hardens. If you're not willing to accept this suffering, you should not attempt this path. Build something else. Take the VC funding, write the clear white paper, create the roadmap. There's no shame in choosing a different optimization function. But if you are willing, if you understand that true capture resistance demands patience measured in years, ambiguity measured in incomprehension, filtering measured in 90% drawdowns, then maybe, just maybe, you can build something that outlasts the attention cycle. Something that survives not because it was popular, but because it was irreversible. That's what building in the shadows of giants actually means.